Yes, now, there used to be a place at Coogee. It was a milk bar, big place, and they have Stones, it was called. And we used to go out to Coogee to surf to the beach, you know. And I had a friend called Enid Hay, and we used to go out on a Sunday to go to the beach, and we came back up the street to have a drink somewhere, and this place Stones was open, so we went in to have a drink, and all the tables, and there was a band playing, a sort of small three-piece band, piano, bass, and drums. And on the bass player played the saxophone too. He used to have to do those things in those days. And we enjoyed ourselves. It was nice, you know. And Enid said, "Why don't you go up and..." It's because somebody got up and sing, a couple of fellas and one girl. And Enid said, "Why don't you go up and have a sing?" I said, "Oh, I don't know." "Go on," she said. So, and she called out and said, my friend here sings." So they said, "Oh, come on up." So we went up. So he said, "What sort of a voice have you got?" I said, "Oh, just a voice." And he said, "Oh, like a high voice?" I said, "Oh, more high." Yes, higher than that. "What do you want to sing then?" he said, the pianist. And I said, "Oh, I forget what I said now. I think what I sang, I don't know." So anyhow, everything stopped in the big cafe, and all the drinkers would drink milkshakes round the counter, and all the stuff. Everybody stopped to listen, you know. So it was called Stones, that's right. Mrs. Stone, she came up with drinks for us, you know, and said, "I don't suppose you'll be down this way tonight, will you?" I said, "Oh." I said to Wendy, "I think we can get back tonight." She said, "Oh, yes." So we went back and I had to sing again. So, of course, every time I went, which was everybody went to Stones at Coogee, it was a really well-known place. Of course, the music attracted them besides all the lovely milkshakes and things, you know. And so we used to go down there. So one night, a chap, after it was finished, this chap and some friends with him came up and said to me, he said, "Are you working anywhere? Are you singing?" I said, "No, not at the moment." He said, "Would you like to come out to Parramatta?" He said, "I've got a dance place over there. It only runs most nights, Saturday night. Saturday nights is about the only night it runs." And I said, "Oh, yes." He said, "Come out and have the night there, you know, and sing for us. He's got a nice band," he said, very nice band. So we went out the next Saturday night, Enid and I. We had a great time. I sang and they shouted us milkshakes and all sorts of things, you know. And he said, "Can you come out next Saturday night?" Yes, I said, "Yes, all right, I'll come out. We'll come out." He said, so then he said as we were going out, "You better come." He said, "I think I'll pay you." And I said, "Oh, all right, then we'll come." So Reggie Myers, who was a saxophone player, and Laurie Bignell, who was a trumpet player, they were great friends of your father's. He used to play with them in the bands, in bands around, you know. And they said to him, "Gee, you want to come out to the..." He said, "Listen to this girl." He said, "What's her name's picked up." He said, she's great. She's going to come tonight." He goes, "Come out tonight." He said, "Oh, I can't." He said, I'm working." So anyhow, the next Saturday night, he took a night off. He wasn't feeling too good. I think he'd been on the grog. So, and then he woke up and he thought, "Oh, okay, what'll I do? I'll go out and see the boys, Laurie Bignell and the boys at Parramatta." So he came up, and Enid Hay was there with me, and I sang up on the stage. And I could see the whole of the place from up on the stand, you know. And when I came down, I said, "Gee, you want to see the good sort that's standing up talking to Wally Hall at the door?" And she said, Where? "Oh, yes," she said. I said, "Well, I saw him first." Anyhow, he came up because he knew all the boys in the band. Laurie Bignell and Reggie Myers, they were great friends with him, and Alf Tremaine that played the piano, and he knew all of them, you know. So after it was over, he said, "Oh, I know." They said to him, "We're going up to the pub to get up to the Bull and Bush to get a few bottles, George." He said, "Yeah, okay, I'll go up." And Enid Hay said, "Can I go with you, George?" And I said, "You leave him alone. I've got my eye on him." She said, "Oh, no, well, I'm going." It's okay, up she went. But we went then, when the thing was over, they went to this paddock outside Parramatta, all in cars, and all picked up girls, you know, and took them out to there. And, of course, I was sitting in the father had the old Ford then, or it was Pop's Ford, and I was sitting in the front seat talking to him. How I got to be there, I don't know, and sitting at the wheel, and he was standing out with the door open. He was leaning on the door, you know. We were having a drink, and after a while he said, everything started to go quiet, and he looked around and he said, "I think you and I better be in this possum." So that's how it started.
Yeah.
That was on a Saturday night, and the next day he came and picked me up, took me out. I went away. I can't remember. I think we went up to, I forget where we went for lunch somewhere. Long drive back. Yeah, and then that was it. That's how I met your father, just like that, just by chance. We got married at the Church of England church used to be at the top, right at the top of William Street. Right at the top of William Street. And Daphne Lowe, my cousin, who was a great friend of mine, she was my bridesmaid. And then your father's best man was Donny Burness, who was a great friend of his too. Benno, we used to call him. And we had the small reception, it was only family there, at Adams Hotel, because Dad was the general manager there. So they turned it on well and truly, but only family, mostly family. Nana's great old friend, Mrs. Wright, Auntie Wright, she came with Nana because Pop was in hospital. Nana was greatly offended because we didn't wait till, but that was the only date we could get for the hotel and for the church sort of thing, you know. And Daphne Lowe, who was my friend then in those days, she was Rena Jean's cousin, Daphne Lowe. She was there, of course. Nana and Mrs. Wright, who was Auntie Wright, she was Nana's very best friend of years, you know, from years ago. And Mum and Dad, of course. John. I don't think he wasn't married. He didn't have no Ilma then, I don't think. John.
It was in the middle of the war too.
It was. That's why I wasn't a bride. I wasn't a bride. You know, it was de rigueur to be a bride in wartime, unless you were in the forces. Well, neither your father nor I were in the forces, so they turned him back. He was breaking his neck again.
For his
asthma, his chest, yeah. Turned him back.
And what about the floating Palais? That's where Dad used to play, wasn't it? Luna Park?
Luna Park, yes, he used to play there. I was pregnant with Charmaine. I remember going out to hear him play, to see. He said, "Come out and have a look and listen to it. It's quite good, you know." And the crowd that turned up there on the floating Palais, wow, it was great, you know. And they had a good band too.
He was there every Saturday night, or?
I think it was only. Yes, I don't think it was on every night there at the Palais, the Luna Park Palais. I don't think so. I can't remember that very well. I can't remember. I'd say it was only Saturday nights. And the chap who played the trumpet was the band conductor leader, Freddie Swightley, they used to call him. But Father knew he was a German. His name was Schweigel. And of course, he was all the time looking around the corner of his, over his shoulder, because that was wartime.
Yeah.
And he didn't have anything to show that he wasn't a naturalised Australian.
Right. Okay. So he was.
But he played all over the place. He was a good trumpet player, and it was his bands. Yeah.
And did Dad work? Was that his job?
No, he worked with Hastings Deering.
Right. Yeah.
In the city somewhere, I forget where it was then.
Bottom of William Street, still there.
Is it?
City Forward it is now.
Oh, City Forward. Well, that's where he was. Yeah. He was on the show. He was a salesman. He was on the floor. Forwards, yes.
Still Forwards.
Still Forwards.
we moved from Malabar to Strathfield.
Strathfield.
To look after Pop, really, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yes, that was right, to look after Pop. He came out to stay with us after Nana died, but we didn't have room for him, and it meant that one of you kids had to be put to sleep on the lounge, you know, and as your father said, that wasn't fair. Yeah. And he said himself, old Pop, oh no, this is not fair. He said, if you come back and live with me at Strathfield and look after me, I'll leave you the house. I'll give you the house. In fact, I'll give it to you straight away. I can remember when he died, when your father died, and Pop was broken-hearted, and he said, "Oh, don't cry, Pop. You know, you don't upset yourself like this. We can't help it. He's gone. I'm heartbroken too." He said, "Oh," he said, "he was my son." He said, "Even though I never created him, I never made him, but he was my son." He said, "Because he went from a little fellow." He said, "I had him," and you know, he was very, very upset. Poor old Pop. Yeah. Well, he was a young man to die. That's what Pop used to say, "Here am I, an old man." And he said he's got a young fellow gone at that age. That was
So
40.
he was
He's 47. He'd be
younger.
about 47.
47.
Oh, well, he knocked himself about in his young days. He should, you know, he drank like a fish and smoked. He should never have smoked because he was an asthmatic. And he smoked like the chimney. And he knocked himself about. You couldn't tell him, though. Bliss.
Have you ever stopped to think how many Christmas presents you've bought over the years?
Oh, my God, Father. And how many...
88 years.
88 years. How many Christmas presents I've made over the years, because in the early days I used to crochet something for everybody. You all had shawls and jackets and goodness knows everything, and I used to do all that. Crochet round everything, you know, around handkerchiefs. Yeah.